I'm Valentin Sandoval. For those of you who don't know, on the podcast here, I'm a writer, a filmmaker. I'm a poet. I'm an entrepreneur, and I learned to be an entrepreneur as a result of my recently deceased colleague, best friend, mentor, Don Shapiro. 97, January 22nd was the day that he died, and so I'm working with the ripples of that, in the everyday life and in the spiritual realm as well. So I'm a believer in that, and somewhat of a mystic, and I have a friend of mine that I've known for years now. Passingly throughout the years, I'd see him around. We'd have events here. He's a skater. That's how I knew him. On the surface, I didn't know the backstory. I knew that he was a skateboarder. We had a skate shop here, and they'd show films here, and his films, and that's when I learned that he's not only a skater but he's a filmmaker. And with all due respect, there's we're gonna dive into later on what a filmmaker, the etymology and the history of that,
Mhm.
but is he transcended the videographer component of someone that's creating skate videos, because oftentimes skaters are great filmmakers.
Mhm.
They have great cameras, great lenses, great creativity, great editing. You are that, but you're also an academic. You're a teacher. You're a lot of things. You're a storyteller, and you're a visionary, and your vision has taken you from Juarez. Now you find yourself in New York. Everybody, I'd like for you all to meet Luis Galindo,
Thank you very
filmmaker,
much. Thank you.
writer, friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Valentin. And I also want to say, in the list of things that you address yourself being, I find you to be a gestor cultural. Like
Okay.
you create culture in the city. And that's beyond being a business owner and entrepreneur, I believe, because you've affect in a positive way the community with
Wow. Thank you.
with culture, and that's amazing. I also want to add the you have this you're like this magnet, like I remember seeing you around, and I'd raise my question, like, who's that guy, who's that guy, who's him, who's that guy, who's that guy, and you're always like very patient talking to everybody, or the tone of your voice, and I was like, who is he? So it's very, you turn yourself into someone very, like, people orbit around you, and people want to get close to you, want to stretch your hand, they want to learn more about you, and I'm so happy that I've been able to do that, and I want to thank you so much for all the friendship we've had, all the times. Thank you for screening your movies at Cinema Studios, which we'll talk about, I guess, later. And I'm very happy to be here. By the way, I want to say this. I I knocked on the door. I asked Valentin, "Hey Valentin, I want to be in your podcast. How can I sit with you? Can I talk to you? Can I?" And I'm saying this for all the artists and designers who are just waiting to be called. Go knock on the door. Go ask, "Hey, I want to be in it. Can I be a part of it?" Those are the ones that get to sit here in the end. And thank you for listening to me, and for having me here. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Valentin.
right, no, right back at you. And this is you're absolutely right about that. Of what you just said right now. Of we're not on a ivory tower here.
Mhm.
Richie and myself. Richie's audio engineer here. He's much. He's a colleague. He's been here the longest with me at Power
Mhm.
at the Pass, and he's done tremendous with his barbed wire open mic. So we're very similar. Richie has more of a consistent podcast throughout the years, and but people hit him up. It's like they be proactive with that,
Mhm.
and I'm the same way. Like I'm very busy, but you come at us with with an idea or a podcast. Like I'm game.
Mhm.
Like we had a filmmaker from Oaxaca also, come by, and we had spoken, it was, and I did it all in Spanish.
Rafael Prieto,
Rafael
right?
Prieto from
Yeah, shout
Oaxaca. Yeah,
out.
yeah, Rafa, like he's a sweet guy,
Yeah.
and very smart, very talented, and so I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see if I could hold my ground in Spanish and
Mhm.
transcend the pocho chicanismos, and not in a bad way, but I just wanted to be I just wanted to be articulate,
Yeah.
with it, and so I love that now I have you here. It's the quintessence of the frontera.
Mhm.
And that's the value that we have. Is that we have a binational, international location region that we grew up with, and if to some extent, I don't know about you, but I wasn't as appreciative of it,
Mhm.
growing up. But it takes travel, right? It takes that Joseph Campbell hero's journey to
Mhm, mhm.
go out and leave your cradle and and the comfort zones of your place, and go
Hero's
out and
journey.
experience and learn, and so that's where you're at right now.
Yep.
Where do you living?
So right now I live in Brooklyn, New York. I'm in a neighborhood called Bushwick, and I'm 2 blocks away from the J train. So in 30 minutes, you'll find me in the heart of New York City. When you talk about the border, a lot of people don't know this about me. My mom is a nurse, my dad was a doctor, and my mom was chief floor of delivery in Juarez. So they had already paid for the doctor here and everything at Sierra Medical Center. A friend of my dad who have the delivery here in the U.S., an anchor kid as we're being called, and the day that my mom goes into labor, she calls two of her friend nurses. They get in the car, and as they're crossing the border, I'm being delivered in the middle of the Rio Bravo, in the middle of the Rio Grande. So when the car arrives to the checkpoint, the border patrol officer is like, What are you doing? Where are you going?" It's like to finish delivering this baby. It's like, "Oh, go 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 go!" So that's why I was granted dual nationality,
Wow.
and I don't consider myself Mexican or U.S. citizen. I'm from the border. I don't. It's almost like I don't trust none of these two. And I know that I'm not the only person like that. I know that around the world, there's many people who are born at a border, and when they're questioned, pick a team. They're like, I don't know. I mean, I would have to go Mexican because my mom is Mexican, my dad is Mexican. But I think it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of the United States. I don't think the U.S. is a country. I think it's all the countries gathered in one piece of land because there's no more diverse place on Earth. And just like yourself, we've been to many metropolis in Spain, in Japan, wherever. And in Japan, there's Japanese. In Canada, there's Canadians. In Mexico, there's Mexicans. In Russia, there's Russians. Da, da, da. But when you go to the U.S., what is a U.S. citizen? It's just this mixture, and I think that's amazing. Just the best people in the world gather there.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
think at its best, right? The
Mhm.
United States of America. You
Yeah.
you can you can break it down to being states of
Exactly.
statehood, right? It's like a
Mhm.
united statehood at its best, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea that made this country great in that
Mhm.
in that in that in that in that manner.
It's like it's a Baskin Robbins in every state. It's its own
Yeah,
flavor,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you pick your flavor to
Yeah,
stay
that
at.
that's an amazing story, that because I wrote my first book. South Sunrises was a story of my mom. Like crossing over and have me having been born here, but
Mhm.
you literally were born in the middle of the puente. What bridge was it?
It's America's.
The
Yeah,
Americas.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The most transited
All
one for
right.
sure.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
That'd be like one cool, like, short
Yeah.
documentary, or like an op-ed, or something,
Yeah.
um so that just to parlay that right into what we do, what the common ground of what brought us together
Mhm.
recently was working together on the Blue Beetle project,
Wow.
that was last year, right? And
2
literally,
years, 2
was it 2 years?
years.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was it was 2 years ago. And um before we go into that, though,
Mhm.
I want the audience out there to understand your educational journey,
Sure.
as to what made you, to a filmmaker, and now you're in grad school, right?
I
And
finished my
you finish
master's.
your
Yeah,
master's.
yeah. I wanted to go into my PhD, but then I was like, it's such a like if the master's was that hard, I think that the PhD is like you have to dedicate your whole time to it. But
So talk about
yeah.
your choices to be a filmmaker, and a slash academic, and how that plays out.
So I was raised mostly by my grandma and my mom. My dad had a family before us, and he would spend time with that family more than with us. But still, I always had a dad. He always went to the house. He kissed my mom. He saw me. He took me to play golf. And his caddy was Lee Trevino. And as I know, he's the one responsible to giving Johnny Cash all those pills for the ones that he got busted in Juarez, Mexico. Yeah, my dad, because he
No,
opened
get
the
out of
first
here.
clinic hospital in Juarez. He died like at 86 or something. He was an old man. 25 years older than my mom. That's crazy. But,
Wow, wow,
yeah.
what a player, you know? What
That's what I say, but,
yeah.
so I guess my brother and sister was PBS Kids. It was Sesame Street, Reading Rainbow, Mister Rogers, and that was it, and it was just like they were telling me ABC, and it's a big serious deal, like, "Oh, you gotta learn these," and just seeing the moving image, the cameras, and then the movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come up, Back to the Future, where there's like skateboarders and they have cameras, and I was like, I want to do that. And since I was a kid, and a friend of my dad came once with a VHS camcorder, and he just shot like a family home video, and then he put it in the TV. And to me, seeing that, I was like, this is it. I'm able to do that. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I was just stubborn on how can I make movies? How can I make movies? And it's not like your mom's gonna go buy you a camera. And back in the day, that was like, still is. It's like an expensive gadget. But it was really cool to be obsessive about films, to be obsessive about telling stories. And then when the TV was off, it was just me and my action figures. So it was like me making stories, making like, oh, this is the princess and they're gonna go rescue her or whatever. So it was always a storytelling that kept me entertained. And doing that, it was amazing. By the way, parenthesis, this year, cinema turns 130 years old. It's a baby. It's 3 generations. And it's so cool that we got to live in
Do
this
you
time.
what month? You know, what's the birth?
We gotta see that, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
when the
yeah.
Lumiere brothers screened their first, film in Paris on, the basement
The
of a.
trip to the moon, right?
Yeah. No, this was they played 10 short films, like The Train Arriving. They were very short. Trip to the Moon was till 1902,
Okay.
so we're talking before the 1900s for sure. 130.
So was it, Edison, right,
Yeah.
that started the not there was the person that
Yeah.
Thomas that started that had the camera and
The
built the
the
camera.
dispute's always going on between if it was Edison or the Lumiere brothers. As you know, the Lumieres, they were like scientists cutting and making these things and shooting movies, while Edison was a kind of Elon Musk, where
Like a sales more like,
they're just making copyright. Like, yeah,
gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha,
yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
But the actual ones to start it started
More
were
than likely,
the Lumiere
it was the
brothers.
Lumiere brothers because they were the scientists,
Yeah,
yes.
but I guess coming back to me, it's so I started just going to school, elementary school in Juarez, always telling stories. Could not do team sports because when you're an only child, you don't take bullying that well. Yeah, you cry. You can't handle it, and you're just like, I don't want to be in your team. Like, I don't want to score a goal for you to win. Because I did hockey, ice hockey in Juarez for a bit, but I was not having it because I didn't feel like I was in a team. That's when skateboarding came to be
Mm,
such an important part where I don't have to have anybody in the team. I could just be myself. I could make my own challenges and keep going. And that in parallel with the camera, it was just perfect. My first camera, it's called the Game Boy camera. And it was this ball thing that you put on like a cassette in your Nintendo Game Boy. And it would let you shoot 35 pictures, but I was always playing with clay, making figures out of clay. And I remember I made this figure and I did stop motion because in Discovery Kids, they had this program, this show called Magic of Cinema or something like that. And they showed, oh, this is how you do stop motion. So I was copying what I saw. I remember showing my mom, look, mom. And it didn't have a video feature, but if I left the button, the arrow to the right, it would go back, 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 back. And I had a figure come in and pick its nose. And then this Kleenex fell on top of him. And I was 5 years old then. So since I'm 36 now, I'm from 1988, March and Aries, year of the dragon. And
yours just passed, right?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Now we're on the snake. We're on the snake.
Apparently, it's my year,
Hey,
you
there you
know? It's
go.
a year of the
Long
snake.
live, long live.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of where it all catapulted a lot. Doing that video. It was very short, and then from there on, skateboarding turned and watching skate videos. That's when you see, "Oh, I can make that movie. It's just my friends, a camera, and some
For
tricks and
sure. Yeah.
intro, outro." And we were doing that. We didn't have a camera. We would steal our friend's dad's camera, go shoot, and I remember we would, like, copy the footage, and we didn't even have idea how to buy tapes, money, or anything to buy tapes, so we would just, like, "Hey, after we shoot, we need to record just blank on top of it so my dad doesn't know we use the camera." So instead of being a blank tape, it would have, like, just black, you know? And it was like that the whole time till middle school arrived. And I was now my mom would be like, "Whose camera is that?" It's like, "Oh, my friend's dad. He lent it." And like, "No, no, go return that camera. You know, those things are expensive." And that's when it happened in middle school. Also in Juarez, Jackass started happening.
Hmm.
And I was already a fan of the Tom Green show. And these shows were like really funny, really DIY. So when Jackass came up, I was like, this is amazing. This is it. This is amazing. And we did that. We did this thing called Chihuahua Loca, and we did VHS tapes. And these are full length feature films of skits, stunts, skateboarding, music videos. So sort of like Bam Margera started doing with his CKY videos before Jackass. We did a bunch of those. Probably sold like 700 copies. This is before YouTube, so it was like VHS tapes, and then we did the transition to DVDs. Oh, now we have to put a menu and bonus and stuff like that, and always pushing it. Like I always wanted to be heard, and because I knew that cinema and movies had that power. So after middle school and making those videos, high school came also in Juarez, and by that time when I was in transitioning from middle school to high school and such, and about to finish high school, my mom was ready to give me money to buy a vehicle. She's like, "So buy a car, a used car for you to go to school." And I was like, "I don't want a car. I want a VX 2100 Sony. Like, I want this skate video camera. I don't care about a car." Next thing you know, because she agreed, I ended up getting at 16 years old a job in an advertising agency in Ciudad Juarez, where I would be hired to shoot everything that the city of Juarez was doing. So I would go in the mornings and shoot how they were cleaning schools, how they're building new highways, fixing lights. And I didn't know I would edit on VHS and DVD or maybe Windows Movie Maker. But with this job, I would sit there and I would, you know, watch people edit on Adobe Premiere. Watch, like, I'll sit down and like, you can go now. Like, oh, cool. I want to see. I want to see. I want to see. I want to see, and ask questions. And then eventually, you're like, do you want to edit? And I was doing radio and television for the city. And I remember working there for a year. I got so much experience. Shout out to Ricardo Bennett for being my sensei.
What was the agency, if you don't mind me
There's
asking?
a Skymark. Skymark is the name of that agency.
Are they still around?
Yeah, I think they switched names,
Right.
but they were the ones responsible of rebranding Bassett Place from Bassett Center. So they were doing business both in Juarez and in El Paso, and it was such a great hands-on experience to work there. I remember after a year working there, they told me, "Hey, we're gonna need you to come on the weekends too, because we have too much work." And I was like, "I can't. I'm making my skate videos. I'm skateboarding. It's impossible." I was very like, "No, I can't do it." And then next day I show up and the boss is like, "We need to talk." I'm like, "What?" And there's papers. I'm like, "No." They're like, "Luis, it's time to let you go." And I started crying, literally like, "No, please. I love this place." And the way that Sergio Lastra did it, it switched everything because he's like, "Dude, you're very young. There's people in this agency that have a bachelor's doing graphic design and they make less money than you. You need to go out there. You need to go do other things. Like we don't want to keep you stuck between these four walls. You're 16 now. We leave you, you're gonna be here what till you're 20 just making commercials? Go make movies. Here's your and they were firing me so they could give me my money, you know? Because I could have been like, "Oh, you're not coming on the weekends? Well, just like you're quitting." But they were like, "Here's your money." And I remember telling them, "I'm gonna buy a light kit. I'm gonna buy a camera." And they're like, "You should go to Guadalajara because you've been talking about moving to a major city." And I did that. I moved to Guadalajara, Mexico, worked in advertising agencies, did documentaries over there. But it was so too much party, too much alcohol, too many drugs, and I wasn't even eating well. I was just waiting for the
This is
party.
in Guadalajara.
Yeah, and Guadalajara is like just partying all the time. And I ended up
How old were you again?
by then I should have been 18, 19 years old probably. And it was to the point where I ended up just working at a call center.
Mm.
But still, it was Priceline, which is a travel agency. So I had to learn about cities, capitals, airports, what attractions are. I ended up getting a phone call by William Shatner since he's their, I don't know, his spokesperson. So I'm like, oh, is this the William Shatner? Yes,
You
yes. I'm
said
like,
you spoke
wow,
with him
congrats.
chatting.
Oh, thank you. It's so cool to talk to you. Da, da. And the other one that I had was Michael Moore. Like, I'm in the phone. It's like, hi, I'm Michael Moore. I'm trying to get a hotel in New York City. I'm like, the Michael Moore, the filmmaker. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah. And I could hear his voice. I'm like, oh, man. So it was really cool to work that. It was not the job on my line of work, but I did learn a lot. Now, after a year in Guadalajara, one day I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go back to my mom. I need to go back to my Juarez. I can't. This place is gonna trash me and spit me out. So I better get out. So I'd never driven on a highway before. Like, and I had a car that I bought, and I was just like, all right, let's take it from Guadalajara to Juarez by myself. Came back to Juarez, and I guess to put us kind of where we are now is I started doing commercials for Volkswagen Juarez, but then I my mom was like, "Hey, you got to do something." I missed something when I was in high school. There was this film course being offered by teachers from Mexico City that they would fly every weekend to Juarez. So every weekdays, all the weekdays like Saturday, Sunday, we would have classes, film classes. That went for about a year, maybe. That's where I met a lot of great filmmakers, and we did our exercise and shorts. So coming back to when I come back from Guadalajara, El Paso Community College. It's like, okay, let's get this done. I want to keep studying, and I entered the mass comm program, which was offered by then was television, radio, journalism, and film, and it was great. Like I did so many short films that went to film festivals, and I was locked in on there. I did graduate from EPCC. From there, moved to NMSU. Did my bachelor's degree in film there. Same thing. I did a lot of movies, a lot of short films. I always advise people who go to film school treat your homework like a film, an actual film. It's independent cinema. Eraserhead is David Lynch's thesis project. It's his homework and still is considered
A masterpiece.
an independent film
Yeah.
masterpiece. So because he paid for his school. So even if you're getting financial aid or loans, it's your money. So I would always take I would always be very serious with the production value of my shorts. Even if it was just a camera placement exercise, I would put wardrobe, I would put like, set design, etc. And after finishing there, I got accepted to be in the David Lynch Maharishi University of Management in Iowa. But I remember at that time Donald Trump got elected the first time, and that's when he was calling Mexicans rapists and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go. I felt vulnerable. Like I don't want to go in the U.S. right now. So I stayed in Juarez. And my friend suggested that I did a master's degree in the creative process of art and design in a more scientific way. So I did my master's in science in that, and I focused on independent cinema and filmmaking. It was great because I got to talk about magic, about ghosts, about poltergeists, about creativity, and really got to understand filmmaking not just as entertainment, but more of a ethnographic material like an anthropologist would do, where you're like because his when you speak about history, it's already linked to war, religion, borders, geography. That's why anthropology is here, right? Because we can study everything. This water bottle, this podcast, like so cinema and film becomes when you take it that seriously, you're an anthropologist. You're an anthropologist, anthropologer. What's the
Anthropologist.
anthropologist? So
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that you say that just because that's always been part of the when I banter, when I talk, and sometimes when people ask me, like what my approach or my methodology, and I always kind of say, I'm an urban anthropologist,
mhm,
like or ethnographist, more
ethnographist.
more ethnography, right? Just because it's like amalgamating, capturing the moment, and
Mhm,
and at the same time, I put the urban in there just because I'm not really a scientist in that
mhm,
regard, but So I give it more of an impressionistic take. That
Yeah.
way, I don't have to be accountable to the austere dogma of what
Yeah.
a craft is supposed to be.
Mhm.
You know, and so I like that you said that the way you phrase that.
And then
Yeah,
when you think about Luis Borges, the writer, and between his lines, I understood that fiction doesn't exist because everything has already happened, is happening, or it will happen eventually. It's just a matter of time. So even when you write the fiction, those events happened, are happening, or will happen.
yeah,
So if
yeah,
if
yeah.
they, if they come up in your mind, it's because it could happen.
Absolutely,
There's
absolutely.
science in science fiction. So I think that the one thing I did in NMSU that I missed is for my last year, I went to Thailand to live there for 6 months, and I got to be in a film program too. So I got to make movies in Asia, and it's the same thing, same protocol, same scripts. I got to direct a movie called Talot Pai, where I wrote it in English. This is what I learned from Nicholas Winding Refn when he did God Only Forgives with Ryan Gosling. He did this movie
I
Drive.
don't know that movie.
And what he did is like he went to Thailand, he wrote a script, and then he just had a translator to tell, the actors to repeat the lines but in the original language. And it was such a cool thing to do. Um Always moving with my skateboard, my projector, and my camera. Everywhere. Like skating, making movies, showing movies. Always painting, always making, you know, as much art as I can. Just like my grandma taught me to do it. She was a teacher. So I think that is really the main thing of this. In my master's degree in the creative process of art and design, one of the things that was a result of my thesis was how I noticed that filmmakers care a lot about pre-production, production, and post-production, but they don't want to talk about projection or distribution. That's a horror tale that no filmmaker wants to address. They're like, somebody else is going to do it, or
Yeah.
I'm going to submit to film festivals or YouTube. When it's not a film anymore, it's transmedia to a YouTube video. But that's when we started cinema studios. It was out of necessity to have a place where we could have meetings because we were tired of having meetings at our houses and we wanted to have meetings in an office. But we thought, what if the office is also a cinema? And you get bitter after sending your movie to film festivals. Sometimes I spent one night $500 submitting this film, and then you don't get into any. So for me, it was like we should allow people to play movies and make a profit. So we paid 50% box office to whoever came. And we wouldn't even prejudge or see the movies because we were like, if this is an art house cinema theater, what is art? Art can't be said, that's art, that's not art. There's bad design, but there's no bad art because it's somebody's opinion. And you can't tell that person you're wrong. It's his opinion or her opinion. So that was something we were always very strict about. Like, yeah, no, if you say this is a movie and you want to play it, we'll play it for you. And that was such a great run. We got to screen thousands of movies, hundreds of filmmakers, and
Yeah, yeah, I remember your excitement towards it. I think you even hit me up to do
thank you
something.
so much for screening your movie. And you were
Yeah.
probably at like right at the end before we finished
No,
here
no,
in.
no. I think you hit me up when you were wanting to showcase something, and
Oh
and I was
yeah.
probably an asshole on the pricing of it or something. And I remember now. I'm thinking, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I think he approached me,
Mhm.
and so I remember that you guys shifted and then you went over to Falstaff, right?
Oh
No, no,
yeah.
you were somewhere. You
How
went
did that
before.
happen?
Where were you before?
We were with Abel, and they were like at some UPS place, like just it was like a storage unit near Throwbridge. That's where we started.
That's right. That's right. It was like kind of by the El Paso towing
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
I remember
yeah.
going there or knowing or seeing it somehow,
Mhm, mhm.
and I remember you moving around with it. And what I always appreciate about you is uh is your enthusiasm. Your it's like it's a nonstop, unstoppable. And
Mhm,
that's redundant. It's an unstoppable enthusiasm that you adapt quickly, and I think
mhm.
that's the Juarez. something to do about the whitest resiliency,
Yep.
and the adaptation. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, that's great. They're I wanted it to grow, in the same way that like everybody talks about, Austin Cinemaker Space, or the Austin Film Society. We
Mhm.
all like these cultures that are sort of like a collection or a place where you can showcase your work, and you bring validity, and you bring some kind of socioeconomic scenario there.
Mhm.
And I completely agree with you on the filmmaking distribution part of things.
Mhm.
That was one of the things that, luckily for me, having had like a working class, lower valley of El Paso, kind of poor upbringing in the hood and this and that, and my brothers having to work hard. It was a contrast and a paradox, because like I wasn't being supported, for
Mhm.
my art. I'm like, I want to be a
Mhm.
poet. Eres un poeta, yeah. Nah, I want to be a and I'm like, oh man.
Se va a morir de hambre.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, 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 no. My older brother, like, if you're not making money here in El Paso, Texas, or your work doesn't make money, it's not shit.
Mhm.
And a little part of me, I hated that,
Yeah.
but the other part of me, I loved it, as growing up, because it gave me the pursuit of a certain tenacity to have your art have a tangible worth and a value, and have
Mhm.
there be an exchange where I'm able to take care of certain responsibilities. And it's been a journey for me, but like I liked that working class approach,
Mhm.
and that texture, where it's not like, it wasn't gifted as like this distribution route, because
Mhm.
I luckily for me, I had a really wonderful professor in Cynthia Farah back in the day that gave me this award in filmmaking, got me into the big studios. And when they were coming here, before they were going to New Mexico
Mhm.
for tax incentives, they were coming here for cheap labor and no unions, right?
Yeah.
So my first film was a film done by Chris Webster and Bob Mizarowski, who did Heathers, and they did Tombstone one,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
then they did Hellraiser 1 and 2. So they were here. It was a $10 million show, and I was like I was 19. I was just fresh out of winning an award that Cynthia Farah gave me, and a professor there, now Monvia. And so like I got to see the rigs come in. It was a $10 million show. I saw an 18-ton rig and a 13-ton rig, and I saw what a gaffer was. I saw the grips. I saw the whole culture. And I knew then and there that I'd be in love with this culture for the rest of my life,
Mhm.
one way or
Mhm.
another,
Mhm.
film after film. So like I learned through the book Easy Riders, Raging Bulls and the Mavericks of Hollywood,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you've read,
Yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
and the documentary as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to follow, as preposterous as it may seem,
Mhm.
trying to follow the Roger Corman model in some ways, where, or even Jack Warner, what he would always famously say, I don't want it good, I want it yesterday.
Yes.
And it's a contradiction of sorts, because at the same time, people that know me throughout the years, they consider me an artist. I had a hard time always considering myself an artist, even though I was one, and
Mhm.
a filmmaker. But I was able to learn the balance of like distribution, and having eyes seeing your work, so that you're not in a vacuum, and you're not just going through the film school,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, with the expectancy that there's going to be a studio that's just waiting for you to graduate,
Oof.
or a TV station that's waiting for you to graduate,
Yeah.
or a documentary that's waiting for you to graduate,
Mhm.
or a feature film that's waiting for you to graduate. I'm like, that's just not that's just not real,
Mhm.
and so for me, I had a hustle in a ways, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Don Shapiro, is that it took a New Yorker like him, NYU, that came from entertainment. It's in his DNA, with his
Yeah.
younger brother producing Seinfeld, and his uncle being Carl Reiner,
Yeah.
cousin Rob Reiner, Lucas Reiner, right? So they come from the business of
Mhm.
entertainment.
Mhm.
So Don, the whole time, sometimes I get upset with him or his two sons, who run this really sophisticated operation in a building where people
Mhm.
think, oh, it's beautiful, it's old, but it's like it should be upkept. It's gaudy, it needs this and that. I'm like, this is the way they operate their business.
Mhm.
This is the thing of it. But in their austerity, when it came to the numbers and the P&L, of profits and losses, and the accounting of things, it went to show me how what a profit and a loss is. I'm more is going out than is coming in. I'm like,
Mhm.
they're like, yo, get with it, go and make more business. All they wanted to do, and it took me a while to realize it,
Yeah.
was they wanted me to just understand what true autonomy and freedom is,
Exactly.
and how to have creative headspace to be even more open minded. and not be conflictory with finances.
Mhm.
You're not supposed to be the, like, when people say like, oh, you're an artist, your work will be worth more when you pass. I'm like, don't give me that
No, don't
bullshit.
do that, come on,
I'm
yeah.
not Van Gogh.
Mhm,
This isn't
mhm.
the 1500s.
Exactly.
I'm like, as far as I know, Martin Scorsese is doing just fine. As far as I know, Spike Lee is doing just fine.
Yeah.
Coppola, and it doesn't have to be these big names. The way it's set up, thank God for that, is that you do something, right, and you build a value proposition, you get compensated.
Mhm.
There's no romantic generalization of like you're gonna suffer for your art. And even though I have for a voice and a unique and a distinction
Mhm.
all day, but when it comes to there being value in something that can help you take care of yourself, your loved ones, and build and continue to build and make your dreams a reality,
Sure.
that's what the journey has been for me. And I see that resonate with you, and I hearing you, learning more from you in this podcast.
Mhm.
It's impressive. You see,
Thank you.
yeah, bro. You're very well rounded. I appreciate every aspect of your work, and I want us to parlay that into what you're doing now in Manhattan, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry, in
Yeah,
Brooklyn. and
yeah.
and 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 you, well, actually, let's talk about. I like earlier on you had mentioned how taking the bridge from Brooklyn to Manhattan is not too different from the bridge from Juarez to El Paso.
Exactly. Because you see all the hard workers in the morning, when you take the train before the sun comes up, and you see everybody, in the morning, you see the faces of everyone that's waking up, and they're on their way to hustle. And that's sort of like that's what you're gonna see in the bridge when you see all those cars in the morning. It's people who are going to El Paso to hustle. And getting back to moving to New York, I've been to New York like 7 times. Being a huge Bam Margera fan, when I was 16, I got in a Greyhound bus, went to Philly, and started skating FDR skate park under the I-95 till Bam Margera showed up. Like, "Hi, I'm from Mexico and I'm your fan and I wanna skate with you." So we became cool friends, and then every year I would go visit him, skate with him. And, one time was, because I was taking a Greyhound bus. It's 48 hours. It's insane. It's ridiculous. I didn't know that for the same price you could fly to New York just to get on an Amtrak. So I did that New York trip, and I really loved all the chaos, and as a skater, there's like spots everywhere. It's a massive skate park. Um, so what I did is, I had a gig, it paid good, and I took that money, sent my mom to Paris to live there for a month, and I decided to take my wife, Mariam, to see New York, to see Philly, to go see my uncles in Montreal, and go show her the Northeast Coast. We were planning, "Oh, let's move to Canada because we wanna speak French and there's opportunities." But when she saw New York and we came back, she said, "I wanna live in New York." And I said, You're crazy, that's financial suicide." And she's like, "No, but I think, like, I'm pretty sure you got this, and you're always frustrated that you don't get the opportunities and attention that you wish you did." This is before the Blue Beetle thing, of course. And then after that whole thing happened, it was like, "Okay, let's do it. Let's make the move." Took us 2 years. When I moved to New York, I arrived so cocky, because I just worked with DC and with Warner, and I finished my master's degree, and here I am showing up to New York thinking, "Well, let me go get a job." And 300 applications later, Indeed, Marketplace, Reddit, you name it, hand giving, your resumes, just putting film and going there and, "Hi, I make movies. Hey, I worked in this, da 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 da," and nothing. I was this close to sperm donor, dog walker, because it was like, that's it. I was staying at my friend's houses, a week on each friend's house, and I was like, "There's nothing else I can do." And right when I was about to give up, and I get this phone call and it's like, "Hi, we want you to come to an interview. It's in 46th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. You have to come business formal." So I put a black suit and a white shirt on and a black tie, and I head up to the financial district of Manhattan. And it was very crazy to, get in that elevator, opens the door, and it's just like you're in the set of Wolf of Wall Street, where there's all these people in suits and women in heels, just like on the phone, da da da, giving speeches, morning meetings, like buy, buy, sell, sell, you know? And that's when it happened. They sit down, they give my resume. A day before that, my friend Kelia was saying, dude, you can't be running around with an eight-page resume. This is ridiculous. You need to turn this into a two. This is a Vitae curriculum. You need a resume, it's 2 pages. And I remember telling her, no, if somebody doesn't care of the things I've done, I don't care to work in their company. So I'm sitting down. This man walks in. He looks Hispanic, Latin. He's first generation born from Queens. And his name is Raf Diaz. And he grabs my resume. I'm called into this conference room. He sits down and I remember seeing the pictures behind him, and one of those pictures was him. I'm like, wow, this guy's like he's a big guy here. And he's looking at my resume and he goes, I'm a filmmaker too. And I said, oh, amazing. How much was Blue Beetle? And I'm like, $109 million. Oh, how much did it make? 133 in the box office. Oh, wow. Congratulations for working in a 9-digit film and making a profit out of it in box office. Congrats. I remember thinking, this is insane. I'm talking about millions in Rockefeller, wearing a suit. You're like, wow. And then I say, so what type of movies do you make? And he tells me, I made this movie called Freaks. It was 2 weeks in a row, top 10 in Netflix, and just got bought by Amazon. Emil Hirsch is the main character. And I'm just like, oh, you're like an executive producer. He's like, yeah, I got scripts. And he's like, bring it, baby. I read one a day. People ask
What?
me why, because I
What?
love it. I love it. And I'm just like,
Wow, that's
wow.
the dream of New York, right?
I'm
That's what
just
you.
like, this is insane. Like, out of no job, this is the first one that answers, and I'm having these conversations. So he's like, well, anyway, let me tell you what we do here. I have a face to face business. What we do is we get hired by companies and we will go get the sale done. And that's what we do. We started doing mom and pop pizzerias and their coupons, knocking on doors, doing the personal invitation. And now we're changing the laws, turning cannabis recreational in the state of Florida. We're the ones getting it in the ballot and changing the laws in the country. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive. And I told him, you know what, I had a gig like that once. And I told him, and in that gig, what I did is I made $5,000 for getting signatures in Florida, but for casinos. And you know what I did with that money? I told him I sent my mom to Paris for a month. And I remember he tells me, do you see that lady that's walking right now in? I'm like, yeah. He tells me, that's my mom. We're gonna go have a meal. We're gonna go eat together. And you know what's very crazy? I think we were meeting for a reason, Luis, because when I made my first big money, what I did is I sent my mom to live to Paris for a month. I'm like, really? It's like this is so crazy. We're just connecting so well. He's like, okay, let's get back to the conversation because we're like talking about film, about our life. He's like, okay, what I want to do is I want to come tomorrow to the second round interview. What you're gonna go is you're gonna go to the field with a manager. His name is Bernat from Spain, and he's gonna just show you what it is to go into the business. The client that we are looking for right now is for T-Mobile Business. So you're gonna go sell internet and phones to a zip code that we're gonna give you, and that's it. By the way, Luis, I haven't done a first prelim interview in 11 years. And I own like a 300 plus companies worldwide in Brazil, in South Africa. And today I was just like, give me that. Fuck it. I'll take it. So that's why I'm telling you, we're meeting for a reason right now. At that moment, I thought, yeah, whatever. But now that I've been in the office, I have never seen this guy give one interview ever. He would be the last guy you would be like, hey, can you interview this kid or this person that just walked in from the street? He would not do that. So it was destiny, and I guess what happened from there is I got trained by Bernat. He bought me a suit. They took me to Vermont to snowboard. Raf took me to his house, introduced me to his wife, his kids. Like he showed me beautiful mansion in upstate New York, and we became really, really close friends. A week and a half working for him, he comes and tells me, "Do you have a passport?" I'm like, "Yeah. Well, I want to take you to Canada. Let's go to Toronto. I want to show you the office over there." And at the borders, they're like, how what is your business for? I'm like, "A business or" I'm like, "Business trip." "How long have you been in the company for?" I'm like, "A week and a half." "Oh, then they like you." I'm like, "Well, I guess." So I go, I see the another massive, office. We come back and I get promoted to trainer. I was doing sales in Washington Heights, which is incredible because they call it Little Dominican Republic. So everywhere you enter is like, ay, mi amor, mi corazón. Everybody treats you nice. Sometimes I have friends there who, when I didn't have money, they were like, "Sit down, eat." "No, no, I'll come tomorrow when I have money. Sit down and eat." And I would eat, leave. And later on, I came to tell him, "Hey, that day I didn't have money and I hadn't eaten anything in all day, like all day. Thank you." Tears coming out like that. That's humanity at its fullest. So I made great friends in Washington Heights after working, training people, interviewing people to do sales. The whole goal of these sales and marketing face to face business is that you become your own owner eventually, by hiring people, etc. But I wasn't arriving in time. I was like late most of the times and stuff. And one day I showed up and Raph was at the office, which he's not always there. And he called me like, "Hey, come talk to me." Like, "Hey, what's up, Raph? You're late again. What's going on, buddy?" And I'm like, I'm frustrated. My cameras are dusting up. I really enjoy doing sales, meeting people, making money, but I am a filmmaker and I am sure that if you let me do films for your company, I will make it much profitable than selling internet and phones. And he answered, "Why don't you do both? Because I don't want you to be my employee. I don't want you to make videos for me. I want you to be a business owner eventually." I was like, "Cool." So boom, we closed the deal there, and I started doing creative process films of all the managers and owners. And these are people who have, rang the bell in Wall Street at the end of the night. Like these are really, really successful people in business. So making these documentaries and having a blast with it. One day, Raf tells me, "Hey, I want to meet with you again." We meet, I sit down, and he tells me, "Listen, Luis, I went to a conference and I passed the video you did around the table. 17 people saw the video. I can't keep letting this money get out of my hands. So I don't want you to be my employee anymore. I want you and I to have business together. Do you want to be my business partner? I don't know what you're doing or how you do it, but I know what I'm doing. So do you want to do this?" And we just shook hands. And that moment, it was just like game changer forever. I've traveled so much. I've shot over 90 documentaries easy in Boston, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, of course, Jersey. I've been to Xcaret, Mexico, Toronto, Quebec City, Montreal. It's just insane, like traveling so much. Like I spent the other time like a month and a half outside home just shooting, staying at hotels, and it becomes very tiring. I always said like, "Wow, what a life." No, man, it sucks when you're like living in hotels more than a month and you want to try real food or, you know, it's been a blessing. Or I named the business. I named it the American Documentary Institute, but now has a .com website where you can see the things that we're doing. And our premise is we make films about the creative process of individuals to fulfill their profession or their goal or task. It could be an face-to-face business salesperson in marketing, or it could be an artist, an athlete. So right now, I straight up approach the people that I admire. For instance, the Lego Masters winners, who are like they also own the biggest Lego collection in the world. I saw them in New York, and I just approach people like, "Hi, I have a company called the American Documentary Institute, and I would love to make a documentary about your life and your creative process." And people are like, I love that. Yes. So I've been able to do this and get paid
Amazing.
to do
It's
this.
amazing.
Um, so I guess
What's next? Where does what are some of the the benchmarks and goals of the company of American Documentary Institute?
to have a massive database,
Yeah.
to step off from being a director, because right now I'm kind of the guy who's playing the band by himself, but to eventually hire other directors, hire editors, and just produce. That's because I miss doing fiction. I've been making a lot of short films too. Like, there's the documentary and there's also like telling your stories and writing and all that. And I miss that, but that takes a lot of time. So right now we're just putting it in building the American Documentary Institute as much as we can so that eventually we can, hire people and just produce, because that's what happens when you direct so much and this, you become tired of yourself, like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
ensimismado, like, you're
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
yourself, and it's like, but then you see other people who are amazing, you wanna give them an opportunity, and producing is that next goal, I think, to just become my goal would be to be a director in fiction, producer in documentary, and
Beautiful.
keep growing it, keep growing it.
Yeah, well, you're on that path. You're on that route.
Thank you, Anthony,
Uh,
because I've met people like you, because I've spent
Thank
time
you.
in
Thank you so
walls like
much.
these, because I've seen it happen, and now that we talk about this, thinking about you and Don, me and Raf, you know, there's people out there that want to find you, that want to duplicate themselves and also be like a it's almost like you grow another arm, you
Totally,
reach
totally.
out
Yeah,
more.
like really, that's one of the things that I was it took all these the reason why I connected with Don was again, when I tell people, this building is when they're in awe of the project and whatnot. It always baffles me, that I nailed it down to, and at the same time, I've also had those mentors. I've
Mhm,
been lucky enough to believe in me enough to allow me to get to New York as well. I wrote my
mhm,
first book in Lower East Side Manhattan alongside Dr. Miguel Algarin, who started the New Yorican Poets Cafe, and rest in peace. He died about 3 years ago, and literally he taught me how to write. I went there with the same cockiness that, oh, my emotional tumultuousness of the border is going to be
mhm,
embraced as a human cathartic experience. It's going to be archetypal for everybody, and I'm going to become a success throughout academia. I'm going to travel and then teach and lecture, and though some of that came to be,
mhm,
so you have to have that
mhm.
ambition, right, and
Yes.
that boldness.
Mhm,
But it took a lot of lessons, a lot of ass kickings, a lot of reality checks in that process, so that I ended up coming through on because you want to exemplify the love and the belief that they've had in you,
mhm,
in the same way that what got me this project was a little book of poetry. The story of my mom raising four kids on her own, my dad dying when I was 2 years old in Juarez, and that I never knew nothing about him other than the stories that my aunts told me.
gotcha.
He was a journalist, a guitar player, and died in a car accident,
Mhm,
killed by the rutera. So I used the metaphor and lyric as a connection, a communication to
mhm,
to him, and not in any some kind of proclamation of whether it's deemed proper by the religious institutions, or whether this or that. It was just whether it was just my own connection to wanting to know something about my other half, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so I came with a real story in English and Spanish, a 140-page book of poetry, which was what enthralled Don Shapiro's wife, to love the book. And then he had hired two writers, and Don's, you know, very wealthy, died a very wealthy man, probably a billionaire.
mhm,
And he kept it subdued all these years, where in certain ways, right? And he hired. I was the third writer that he hired
mhm,
to write his book, and two, one was a Harvard, grad and teacher, and worked with Carl Reiner. The other one, a UT Austin professor. They both came here and hired and fired them both. They just saw a wealthy man to tell a story about El Paso and Juarez that they can really give a shit about,
yeah,
and we met serendipitously, and when we connected, I knew right away, when I saw this cool old man with a coat at the DoubleTree Hotel at a city magazine party, when his wife tells me, what do you do? What's your story? I'm a writer. I was looking to get out of town. I was exhausted being here. I'm going to go to Austin. I'm
mhm,
going to go to Phoenix. I'm going to go to LA. I don't want to do neither of those three. but I had to, and I didn't want to go back to TV
Mhm.
and ask for a job at Univision.
Mhm.
I didn't want to go to the ad agencies and ask for a job where I'm the whole time I'm trying to take them on, and all of a sudden I'm gonna like I tail between my legs and I need a job, right? I
Mhm.
wanted something fresh, and sure enough, I meet Don, and then it was writing his story, and it took us 8 years, and in that process, we were able to build this incubator that we were speaking on that earlier. It housed the people. If walls could talk, right? If
Mhm.
if space holds memory, like this place is a conduit. We've had legitimate geniuses coming through here.
Yeah, we were talking when I arrived, like, man, all the people that have walked through this, like, through these on these walls, like,
And created here and left an imprint here, and Don's openness and the Shapiro's openness to tolerate our crazy asses,
mhm.
and it was like, it's a godsend, and
Mhm.
and now that you're here, and I wasn't aware as much as to what you're doing in New York, but I know it was a very great opportunity. I know that,
Mhm.
and I was extremely happy for you once we coupled and we got to talk when we're doing the Blue Beetle project,
Yeah,
and me and you were in the van that you're made into the Blue Beetle
it was so much fun.
painting, right? And we're looking at wrestling the Blue Beetle toys, and
Yeah.
you were talking to me intimately about you're gonna get married, but you don't want to have kids, and I'm telling you, I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm the same way, man. I have this fear of like,
Yeah.
but I do want to get married, and I do want to have kids, and it was very serendipitous, and not even that, it's profound, our connection on that
Yeah, like, we
on
were in a
that piece.
safe space, right?
Yeah,
Like, I could just tell you
yeah,
everything.
and I didn't have to be aware of like there's no creative alpha
Mhm.
artistic competition,
Mhm.
no guardedness, no like duplicitousness that we're kind of unfortunately you have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
But then that's just part of life, but in that place we were in a very safe space,
Yeah.
and it was Angel, Soto, that and that brought us together,
And I gotta tell you that it was last year, at Washington Heights. There's a cinema. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a big theater. They screened Blue Beetle with Lin Manuel Miranda, who has Q&As with filmmakers after the movie. It was Blue Beetle, so we showed up. And yeah, after the movie, it's packed. It's a two set, like, just like the Plaza Theater, and it's packed with people. Just so many people. They were so excited to see Blue Beetle. I remember behind us, it was my wife Mariam, Laura Bustillos. We were there sitting watching Blue Beetle, and there was these girls behind us, like a family, like children. They were crying so much. Like, "Oh my god, why is this movie so sad, mama?" Like, tears. I was like, "Wow, dude, this movie pushes some
the,
buttons."
the one that got me was the when he sees his dad, and the
Yes, when
oh
he sends him out to
man,
fly in space and they
yes.
touch, like, the
Oh,
divine touch, and
yes.
such a great movie. After the movie ended, like, we just, sticked around the building. We gave it, like, a loop. On our second loop, there he is, Angel Manuel Soto, with just probably 20, 15 people signing autographs. And I'm like, let me get in line, let me get in line. So I got in line,
Yeah.
I got in line, da da da. When it's my turn, I'm like, "Can you please sign my DVD? Can I have my DVD?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. To who?" And I'm like, "To Luis." And he looks at me like, ¿Qué haces aquí? He was so stoked. He was so
Yeah, yeah,
happy. Like,
yeah, yeah.
he was just like, he gave me a hug. We're like, dude, my Mariam told him, because she met him too. Like, I love your movie. I think it's a package that has so many things inside. It's like a love letter
No,
for
totally.
for
Totally.
Mexicans and Hispanics and Latin people. And I also told the people that were getting the autographs, I like I said, I just want everybody here to know that Angel is such an incredible director that it doesn't matter that this is a fiction film. He went to do field research. Like, if it was a documentary, who does that?
Yes, yes.
Who does that?
He didn't have to. He did not have to come in. He did not have to come and hook you up, hook me up.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were able to hook up Gus and Old Sheepdog Brewery. I got artists work in the movie when he has the
Insane.
first when Jaime Reyes gets possessed and the eyes upon us there that in his door.
Yeah.
That was from here. That was from the Visionaries. That was
No
from Jason Brewer.
way. I've
Dude,
been looking on Google for that poster, like, because I didn't
they
know.
bought four of our pieces here. You know, aside from like hiring us to do that,
Wow.
I'm like, that's what you get when you have corazon. You know that Latino, Chicano,
Mhm.
Hispano
Mhm. Mhm.
thing
Mhm.
that is palpable. That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
regenerative. That's healing. That's empowering.
Yeah.
You know,
He said on the Q&A something that went like this. He said, "I told Warner Brothers, you deal with how many explosions you want, how, where, when, because you're the ones paying for it. But if when it comes to being Latin, Mexican, or Hispanic, you're not going to question anything because that's what I'm here for. I don't want you to question anything that I have to say before signing the project." That's when Warner's was like, "Cool, let's
bam,
do it."
bam.
And
The
it
power of
reflected
courage.
after shooting the movie when I was asked to do the El Paso's Blue Beetle skateboarding battalion. Warner Brothers gave me $7,000 and more important than that, creative freedom. When that they could have given me $100, but if they would have said, "No, you get creative freedom."
You
That's all you want as a
yes,
filmmaker, you know?
yes,
And it was
yes.
such a blessing to be a part of it. My nerd otaku came back to life, you know, like now I'm at comic book stores. Now I'm like I and another cool thing is I've gotten to meet Julio Anta and Jacoby Salcedo, who just did the newest Blue Beetle novel called This Land Is Our Land. And then I also got to meet JT, who was the one that did all the comic books before that. So now it's like this whole Blue Beetle family thing happening where, oh, we worked, oh, whoa, you're Blue Beetle. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's, and finally get to meet Scott Snyder, writer of Batman in New York, and tell him, "Hi, my name is Luis. I was the advisor for the director of the Blue Beetle film," and he just like, "Goo, congratulations! It's one of my favorite movies." And he's like, "Wow, it's so cool that you're a part of this." And when he said that, and this is a writer of Batman, you're like, "Wow," you know, like I take my time to tell every filmmaker you build this hate on superhero movies like, "Oh, I'm never gonna be able to do any of that." That's probably some rich kid or there's nepotism where it's somebody's son or
For
nephew.
sure, yeah.
I have nothing to do with this. But because we are that stone that's in the shoe, always bothering, you know? What happens? They came to us.
Mhm,
Am I wrong? Did
mhm,
we
n
ask DC something? We
no,
were just
no.
doing our lives and they're like, "Hey guys, we need help."
Yeah, well, Ángel called me and tells me something of the effect of papi or mi rey, ¿me quieres ayudar?
Yeah.
I'm like, claro,
Yeah.
dime.
Pretty magical. It's
Yeah,
magical.
yes, 1,000%. You know, and it was certainly like an upping of the frequency for us that we're
Yeah.
involved in that. You know, and the ripples are still there. And then I end up working with Warner Brothers on two fronts. And last year, where I ended up working on location scouts with Paul Thomas Anderson's film. Bro, they came here to my studio.
Nice.
Like,
PTA is like,
but this is like
whoa.
before they were even here.
Wow.
Like this is like a year before he had been here three times.
So you had to like,
Yeah,
oh
well, you don't think I wanted to break the story like the Fit Fam did?
man. Yeah.
And I'm on an NDA, you know,
Yeah.
I can't say shit, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I got to meet, No Florencia and Sarah who produced on all his films. They've been there,
What a dream.
and the DP and the first AD, some British guy, a whole deal, and they were like literally walking around here. And Don's all, I'm Don Shapiro, I'm Don, all proud of him, happy
Yes,
as a big kid that he
yes,
was, that he is
yes.
still, and so yeah, I mean the journey continues.
And I wanna also add a story real quick. Paweł Pawelselski, the cinematographer of Blue Beetle, shot these movies by Ari Aster, Midsommar, and
Yes.
Hereditary. And I remember telling my wife a week before meeting them, like, "What's your favorite horror movie?" And she told me, "Oh, Hereditary, Midsommar, I love those." So when we were at this food truck stand in the Northeast, eating with Drew Mayor Oaks, Angel Manuel Soto, and Powell, Maria, I'm tell like, "Hey, my favorite movie is Midsommar. I love that movie." And then he said this. He said, Do you guys want to hear?" He's from Montreal. "Do you guys want to hear a story from Midsommar?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." Me and the director, every day, every single day after break, after we're done for the day, we would go to our trailer. We would sit down and we would cry and we would say out loud, what are we doing here? Why are we making people waste their time and their money? This movie sucks. This thing is horrible. We're shooting trash. Why are we doing this? And it was a producer who kept us keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. So the fact that you tell me it's your favorite movie, well, thank you very much. Now you know the story behind it. Crazy,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
Midsommar is a cult classic, man. I haven't seen Heredity, but
Mhm,
like I know that one just caused ripples all across the spectrum. Everybody was
mhm.
talking about Midsommar, Midsommar. Like, what is
Yeah.
this? And
And just to think, like, to all those indie filmmakers who are shooting movies with their friends and they're frustrated because this is not gonna looking as good as I thought it was gonna look. The big movies have the same mentality that you have. Like, man, this is not good enough, you know? But you have to finish it, wrap it.
yes, yes.
Um,
Oh, that being said, that's a perfect cue for us
to
to
wrap.
wrap. This session to be continued, man.
Yes.
This is epic. This is historic as far as I'm
Ah,
concerned.
thank you so much for
Yeah,
this. I'm very happy for this opportunity. Thank you so much for being here and for like
thank you,
letting
Rich.
me be here. It's an honor, it's a privilege, it's a blessing. And yeah, to wrap it up, I guess I just want to say I started being a vlogger this year because likes are more than money in the bank account in 2025. So I do a daily vlog. Go to YouTube, you look for Luis 365. You could see my day to day. And I've been editing a video every single day.
And what's your what other handles? What Instagram, Facebook? What else?
Yeah, my Instagram is Galindian. My YouTube, I think it's just as long as you put Luis 365, you'll find this Thunderbolt thing, the logo of my production company,
Okay.
Purple Room. And yeah, get in there, subscribe, and check it out. See what my day to day looks like. I've been fortunate enough to get really close with professional skateboarders that I admire in New York. Now I have like a almost like a permanent pass to the private Vans for skate park for Vans, their training facility, and I feel like I'm in the NBA court shooting hoops
I
next to
bet.
Kobe. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah.
So thank you very much, and coming back to El Paso and to Juarez is only gonna make me stronger. You know, go back there and be like, Now I remember where I come from, and I need to make sure that I put the names of this city up there and we keep doing everything possible to create that easier tunnel from New York to Juarez and El Paso, where we can bring artists over there and have their screens, their movie screen over there. Cinema studios has gathered almost $2,000 by nonprofits and cultural funds, and we're gonna start doing independent movie screenings and filming workshops, filmmaking
Beautiful,
workshops.
beautiful.
So
And no better place than New York for
so
that.
we're gonna
No
everyone's
better place.
invited, and mostly from Juarez, El Paso. Everyone's invited to come
I'll
play.
be there. Last time I was in Manhattan, I was it was 14 years ago.
Hey, mi
I
casa es tu casa. You have
okay,
your own private room with your
okay,
door.
okay.
Also, you like always welcome to New York City. You have a home there.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And this is beyond fun, Luis.
Man,
Thank you
I'm all
so much,
sweaty. I'm
brother. No,
sorry.
no, man. Thank you so much. That was awesome, guys. I really hope you enjoy that and the insight for you filmmakers out there, aspiring storytellers, artists. I mean, really, like this was top notch. This man here is knows what he's talking about on multiple levels. So follow him in all the feeds and the handles, and doesn't take much. I before I would say when these YouTube guys would be like, click on the subscribe. I do the same thing. I'm pushing Power to the Pass, and I'm all like, guys, it just takes like a click, just subscribe, and you don't know what that'll do for us.
It's almost
So
like you're asking for a vote. Vote for
yeah,
me.
yeah, right. Yes, yes. Only in a winning game here, and that's content creation, storytelling, authenticity. Thank you so much.
Long live.
Long live.